Greetings, my little guzzlers. Not Tiny Rebel, by the way. Oh, that's their glass. Pedigree. Anyway, tonight's extravaganza is Mongolian beef, which isn't necessarily what it sounds like. But we'll come to that. But before we get going, we're gonna add a little accompaniment. We've got to have our greens, haven't we? So we're gonna have some roasted broccoli. So hence, I've got a little tray here lined with oil, oil. I need some oil to go with foil. That's a foil baked. I've been baking earlier. It's gone to me. A foil lined tray. So I've got my broccoli. I need my oil. I need a brush. I need another drink. So tonight it's Mongolian beef with steamed rice, if you like, and roasted broccoli. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my broccoli. I've cut it into florets. I've cut the florets in half so they lie nice and flat. And you might think, oh, a bit disappointed in the costume tonight. Not very well decked out. But this Mongolian beef requires high temperatures. Okay, we're going to be stir frying it. Got the wok. We're going to be stir frying it, and we want it really, really hot, and it's probably going to spit. So I should get told off if I've got it over something. I shouldn't get it over. Anyway, so what I've got here is I've got my pastry brush. I've got some vegetable oil. I'm just going to lightly coat the broccoli florets. Okay, and then I've got my oven up at 220, about 400 F. Okay, and that's been preheated, nice and hot. And I'm just going to keep that oil because I will need some of that in a minute. But before I shove it in the oven, just going to give it a little sprinkle of pink Himalayan salt. Okay, and then that is going to go into the oven until it's starting to char. Okay, so I'm going to shove that in the oven, and then we do the beef. Now, by the way, the beef is currently in the freezer. Right, you might want to shove it in the freezer for about 20 minutes before you're ready to start. Right, don't take very long to do this dish, but it might help with what we're going to do with the beef if you chill it or freeze it first. So, excuse me, freezing it. I've got about 55 grams of cornstarch, corn flour if you like, if you're English. Okay, in that goes. And into that, don't even come out, I'm going to add about half a teaspoon-ish of ground pepper and about the same as salt. That don't want to come out either. Right, so that we're just going to give a little mix together, and that's going to be our coating for our beef. Now, all else you're going to need some oil to fry in. Okay, we want some rice vinegar, we want some dark and light soy sauce, 60 ml each, and 60 ml of water, and I've already got that measured out in there, mixed together. You want 100 grams of light brown sugar. We want some chili flakes, about a tablespoonful of chili flakes. About half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of ground or freshly grated ginger. You want about 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. That's already done, nicely minced up. And then you want some spring onions, which the Americans call green onions, but they're spring onions. And basically, I've already chopped these up, trimmed them and that everything, and they're chopped up into about 2-inch lengths. All right. And then what was the other thing? Oh, and then we want some Thai basil. Tesco's didn't have any basil, so I've got dried. Right, but really you want fresh Thai basil, chucking it towards the end. Okay, and that is essentially it. Okay, and obviously something to keep going. So at this point, I'm going to get my beef out the freezer. So here's my beef. It's not frozen, you don't want it frozen, but sort of semi-frozen would be nice. And what we're going to do is, while it's sort of like that, we're going to slice it quite thinly. Oh, that's cold. Right, I'm just going to put it in that bowl for now. Now you can slice it as thinly as you like. Okay. Now, Mongolian beef. So normally when you think of Mongolian, you're thinking of the sort of Mongol Empire, which of course was ruled over by a bit of fat on there. Yeah, let's trim that off. I feel a bit hard, don't want that bit, do we? Ruled over by Genghis Khan. And interesting little fact for you about Genghis Khan. Okay. Did you know he was a bit prolific in terms of his wives and that. He had at least 5 wives. Okay, he had hundreds apparently of concubines, some of which were gifted to him. They were princes or queens that were gifted to him by some of the places it's not a very nice bit of steak, this one, Tesco's. This bit here is well crappy. Look at all the crap in this. So, as I was saying, so he had numerous mistresses and that, and like I say, some were gifted to him, some he acquired, okay, when he conquered various regions. Now, as a result, he had an awful lot of children, and so many so that when you go back through the Y chromosome, so basically you can check out your paternal inheritance via your Y chromosome, because Y chromosomes are only inherited in males from their father. It turns out that something like, well, that's not really nice that bit, is it? There. It turns out there's something like 16 million people alive today carry his genes. And that is how many kids he fathered in his heyday, as it were, to such an extent that 0.5%, which I know don't sound very big, but 0.5% of the world go back to Genghis Khan. But that has bugger all to do with Mongolian beef. So, here's my beef sliced up. In there I've got my corn flour and everything. And so all we're going to do is we're just going to toss the beef into all of that, get it everywhere, right, all over the side. But I'm just saying, Genghis Khan got bugger all to do with Mongolian beef. So why's he got bugger all to do with it? Well, because Mongolian beef that you have in restaurants, actually Mongolian beef is quite popular in America, apparently. Okay, and apparently one thing about Mongolian beef in America is it's pretty much always exactly the same no matter where you have it. But Mongolian beef has nothing, zilch, nada, to do with Mongolian. Typical Mongolian cookery would have been like stews cooked on like open fires. Certainly weren't stir-fried. So where does it come from? Where does this Mongolian beef come from? Well, we'll come to that. So I've now just nicely coated all of this. So the next task is to wash your hands, clear up the mess I just made, and then I'm going to get the wok on with about 3 to 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and we want to get it hot. Alright, so I'm going to get that prepared, and then I'll tell you where Mongolian beef comes from. So, the noise in the background is microwave. I've got some ordinary long grain rice, rinsed, added the right amount of water. It's in the microwave cooker in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our beef, if need be just shake off corn flour, and we're going to shove it in that hot oil, and we're just basically going to fry this in really nice hot oil, because we want it to caramelise. Okay, so I'm just going to do it in batches. So we'll let that cook for a little bit, and then I'll toss it, coat it all around, cook all sides, and then we'll remove that batch, put it to one side, and carry on until all them strips, as it were, are cooked through. Well, say cooked through, so they're cooked. Okay, and then we will be returning the beef when we start building a sauce. Now, the sauce is quite a thick sauce. Okay. It's almost like a glaze, it should be. Again, I've never done this before, so I've no idea what it turns out like. But it wants to be hot, because part of this technique is to get, like I say, the beef and some of the vegetables, well, the onions, to caramelise. Okay? So, that was just a reminder to check my broccoli, but I've done that. So, like I said, Mongolian beef doesn't come from Mongolia. Mongolian beef was invented by the Chinese in the 1950s. So why Mongolian? Well, for some weird reason, in sort of China and Taiwan and that, they had this weird belief that Mongolian cuisine must be this dark and mysterious cuisine. But obviously, probably because of how successful Genghis Khan was, that, you know, their food must be somehow super good, and therefore it would sound good if they called their food after that. So it was invented in Taiwan in the 1950s. Okay, and that's where it comes from. Now I'm just going to get the next batch on. Okay, and then I'm going to go through, cook all that bit. Oi, get back in, you little bugger. Still hot all over my cooker. Probably haven't needed enough. And then I'll tell you a little bit more. That's my beef cooked off. So in goes the onions into that same hot oil. Okay, with all the bits in it from off the beef. And we're just going to toss these around for a little bit, cook them. So the trick with Mongolian beef, like I say, it's just basically a stir fry, but it was to get it really hot so the meat sort of caramelises. Now, but although I said everywhere you get it's pretty in America it's pretty much the same, it's not necessarily overly spicy. It's not necessarily hot, okay, but you could add some chilies if you wanted, okay, if you want to spice up a bit. Go on over there. Okay, that's entirely up to you. Now we're going to be adding chili flakes, but if you wanted to slice up a couple of chilies and put them in there, you could do. Okay, it's quite a sweet, sticky sauce. It's going to have 100 grams of sugar in it. So, just tossing these through for a little bit, and now we're going to chuck in there. If you were putting chilies in, the chilies going now, but I'm going to put my chili flakes in there. Okay, and I'm also going to put into that this ginger that I did earlier. Okay, so you've got a bit of ginger goes in there, and we're now just going to toss that through in that hot oil. So it's about a medium high heat. It does spit, I just got a bit in the eye. I'll tell you what that stings. Okay, so we just toss that for a little bit. Now, next bit, 100 grams, like I said, soft brown sugar, in that goes. And we're going to mix it in. Okay, now at this point, obviously, that soaks up all that oil. It's not exactly very mobile. Now, in we go, that mixture of 60ml dark, 60ml light and 60ml water. And we're also going to add a splash of rice vinegar. Oops, big splash. And we're now just going to mix all that in. And we really want to boil it, okay? And we want to let it boil and we want it to reduce. So that's going to take a little while. Obviously, we want to get that down. Minute very, very runny. We want it a nice thick, sticky sauce. All right. So there you go. So the only two ingredients left to put in there is our Thai basil, baked, and our chopped garlic. They will go in together near the end, and then, but that's after we've returned the beef. And this is a rather nice Tesco Finest pecorino. Had it before, very nice. Could have done with chilling it down a bit more. So that's now quite nicely reduced down, still not quite there yet. But at this point we're going to add back in the beef. Okay, and we're now just going to stir that all in together to nicely coat it and continue heating it. Because obviously that beef's got a little bit cold, and I'm going to chuck in the garlic at this point. Just simply so it gets a chance to cook through a little bit and mix in well. But we'll add the faint Thai basil once we're almost ready to serve. Now, so the rice is done, the broccoli is nicely roasted and charred. So at this point, we will need to get, so you can see how the boil's gone off because of the cold beef, well, coldish beef. So I need to let that get back up. So at this point, obviously, we're going to need to start getting ready and top your glasses up, by the way. So we'll distribute the rice in the bowls, and then this will go on top of the rice, and we'll add some broccoli alongside it, and then we'll attempt to eat it with chopsticks, which means I shall make a bloody mess. So that is it really, apart from putting that basil in, Thai basil, fake Thai basil. That's your Mongolian beef. Like I say, it's just a Taiwanese stir-fry. That has nothing to do with Genghis Khan, Mongolia or anywhere else. Okay, if you wanted a traditional Mongolian meal, it may well have a bit of beef in it, or lamb or goat or whatever, but it's more likely just to be a stew cooked in a big pot, and that's it. And like I said, the Chinese like to think Mongolian beef or lamb, you can have lamb if you like, just sounded a bit more exotic, but that's it. But well, I'll let you see it with the final thing when I've dished it up. The sauce now is starting to get nice and thick, it's starting to coat, but I'm going to let that cook for a little bit longer because I'd like the sauce a bit thicker, because that's what it should be. So, almost there now. Almost there now. Almost there now. See it again. Almost there. So, here it is. Forgot to chuck the basil in, didn't I? So I'll sprinkle a little bit on top, it don't really matter. But let's give it a go. So there's a bit of broccoli. Let's just coat that in that sauce. Might have overdone the broccoli a little bit. Anyway, here's the beef. Didn't really get any beef, did I? Okay. Mmm. Nice and sweet, sticky sauce. Don't really get a big hit from the chilli, but it shouldn't be. Okay. Even though it didn't seem like it, the beef was quite tender. But there you go. That's your typical Mongolian beef, Taiwanese stir-fry.